Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town. Tyler Gould, 2 words for you. Andréa Simmons. She's our guest. She's our guest this week, and I've never met a person like her. Granted, it was over Zoom. I've actually met her because I've been at Hotel Gould before, and we've met the Simmons family at church, but never met her like this. She was amazing. What are you sitting there thinking about as you think about the time we just had with Andréa?
I mean, it's hard to not just like spoil this whole episode right now because there were so many good things that she said. I mean, but I think that what I loved was the journey that she takes us on, and she talks about her childhood and growing up and getting to where she is. And you know what I loved about that? She talks about being 5 years old and knowing what she wanted to be and to do, and then throughout life she has these things happen that for a lot of people would be devastating, right? Devastating distractions. And she makes the comment, well, you know, it's just a learning experience. It's something I could learn from. And man, how can I use this? How can I use this?
How can I use this? Right. So I got this situation and I'm holding it in my hands. How can I use this to get where I know I can be?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We talk a lot in this podcast about faith and about hope. And I thought Andréa did a great job of conveying the importance of faith in her life and the way that faith brought her hope. You know, she talks about being disconnected from faith, and she says that faith was buried by choices, right? But her journey to unearth or uncover the faith was pretty inspiring.
Yeah, we talk about almost like at an instinctive level.
Yeah, right.
She's not going to Sunday school. She's not living in this idyllic childhood with, mom and dad is, church going, stable, right? She's moving around but she's observing. She even makes a note, right? That I'm super observant of what's going on around me. But then the way she interacts with God, like an instinctive level, saying things like, help me move past this.
Yeah.
Think about that question in the spirit of repentance and what you and I know about repentance.
Yeah.
She didn't know that.
Right.
At that time, when she asked that, she doesn't know what we might know.
Yeah.
She's not necessarily familiar with, with maybe even the Holy Bible.
Yeah.
She's just up against it, needs some help, wants to have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And you talk about a hinge moment, that conversation puts her on higher ground.
It changes a lot of things.
Starts to feed her soul, right? Light comes in. If we're struggling, I had this thought. I don't even know if I expressed it in our conversation with Andréa, but if we're having thoughts of like, I'm struggling with this bad thing, I think sometimes we think, okay, I got to remove this bad thing. Well, this bad thing might be deeply rooted.
Yeah.
What if you killed it with good?
Right.
What if you actually just went to the scriptures and started saying some prayers and started bringing some light into your life, maybe that bad thing just can't coexist in that space.
Yeah. Maybe it just dies, right?
You
In
know?
that space. Yeah.
And it's like for someone who might be struggling with drinking, right? I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And it's just like in the mind is always thinking about drink versus let's introduce some things you are going to do.
Right.
And if those good things happen to bring some light, like she says, right? What's good is from me.
Yeah.
As we introduce those good things in our life, that's one of the lessons that Andrea teaches me. Well, man, you want to talk about someone awake at the wheel of her life and driving and not letting other circumstances dictate where she's going to end up. That's Andréa Simmons.
Yeah. Amen.
Man.
Just sit down and hold on, hang on tight, because this thing ain't slowing down for a second. And, I will say one of the last things that I'll mention, and I think it's worth mentioning, because I think Andrea brings it up at the end of the episode, but it's a theme that is recurring through her story, is this power of manifestation she talks about. I really liked that idea of, you put it out there and you believe in it and it's good and you work towards it, good things are going to happen.
Good things are going to happen.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. I was open to learning. She talked a little bit about that, and I was open. And I think that's what the purpose of this podcast is. We're intentionally sitting down and listening to people who have amazing stories to tell. And I know I've said this before, and I don't want to sound like, I don't want to sound like Bill Walton or anything, but or Mr. Hyperbole guy, but right. I don't think you've heard a story like this.
Yeah.
I don't think you've heard a story like this. I listened, and as I was listening, I was like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Didn't see that one coming either. So my heart's full of appreciation and gratitude for Andréa Simmons, for Mike, for the kids, for the mom, right? For grandma, for the foster mom. This will all make sense as you listen. I'm grateful for this work that we're involved in. I'm grateful for the connections and the relationships that it's building in my life. Grateful for you, Tyler Gould, and for you introducing me and our listeners to Andréa Simmons. So it's not what she says, it's what we do with it. And I know our listeners are going to do some things with the truths that come out of the life experiences of Andréa Simmons. So enjoy it here on The Richest Men in Town. Tyler Gould, man, what you thinking about these days, huh? Here we go. We got a friend of yours on the show tonight. We got Andréa Simmons. She's joining us, former Chula Vista.
Former, now of Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Yeah. She's where the high rollers are at these days, man.
I don't think we're supposed to be recording anything coming out of Las Vegas. So, hopefully we have her consent to do that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if it's in Vegas, doesn't it have to stay in Vegas? Is that the rule?
Supposed to stay there. Supposed to stay there.
I don't know how that works, man. But
how are things? How are things down in CV?
Things are good. Life is good, man. Yeah. It's kids are getting out of school and life is a fun time.
True or false? Did I just see Gwen graduating from the 6th grade?
6th grade, man. She's a 7th grader.
She's a junior high
kid. Yeah. It's some major changes are happening in her world,
Yeah, in everyone's world.
In
right?
everyone's
world.
Yeah.
The only constant is change.
That's it. That's all we got, man. That's all we got. What's new with you?
Oh, I got I got a kid going into his senior year, and last night at family prayer, he said, "Do you have any regrets about high school?"
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I said, the funny thing is, Abe, I lived my senior year, and that was actually my mantra: no regrets. And he's like, "That's what I'm talking about, Dad."
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Because I know what that did for my senior year.
Yeah, I think sometimes no regrets leads to some regrets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so I did clarify. I said, that there are some things that you just want to be careful, like not graduating from seminary. That would be a thing you'd regret, right? So that no regrets thing cuts both ways.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
You want to take care of your business too, right?
You want to take care of business. You want to end on a high note, man.
Yeah,
got to end on a high note. You know what I mean?
Make your mark.
That's exciting for him.
Make your mark. Make some noise, right?
Yeah,
I'm all about making some noise. What is that? Good trouble.
Good trouble. Yeah.
Good trouble.
Yeah, I think I was always looking for that, but
I think that's the late great Senator John Lewis was all about good trouble.
Good trouble. Yeah.
So
yeah, I like it, man. I like it. So well, that's exciting,
but like
man.
when a kid shows up in a minivan to pick up a girl on a date and his nickname is Good Trouble.
Yeah. No.
I don't know about that.
No, he's not taking my daughter out. You know what I mean? We'll have some good trouble just playing board games at home together.
The thing I love about the Goulds, you guys, when you were in town, the Freemans could always drop by no matter what time, right? I mean, 10 o'clock at night, swing by the Goulds, they're down for it. The other night, I come home from some steak meetings. It's late. It's like, it's Tuesday night. It's about 10 o'clock, and I'm changing some clothes. And I got this thing, right? 10 o'clock. You would think you'd put on pajamas. I got a thing. Like, I can't.
No.
I can't.
Yeah.
So I put on some shorts and a t-shirt just in case something goes down, right? Well,
right. You gotta be ready.
Out, he's like, hey, I'm gonna go grab some food and go to a friend's house. I'm like, all right. In my mind, I'm like 10 o'clock. That's a rare. I mean, that's a friend that maybe it's different for kids. So I come out in the living room. I'm like, hey, Kelly, what friend is Abe gonna go hang out with? And she drops a female name.
Nice. Good job, Abe. Good job, dude.
And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
All right. That doesn't strike you at all? She's like, no, not at all. And there's going to be a lot of kids there. Like, oh.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing, man. If you're going to hang out with a friend, right? And someone, your parents ask you, where you going? And you drop the one person's name, right? Like if you single out the one person, you're not going over there to hang out with like the other 10.
No. Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And she was 100% like, I love my son and I trust my son, but he's 50% my genetic code. Right.
Yeah.
So like, I immediately start thinking, ooh, I mean, are there some red cups around in this little get together?
Our parents present. Yeah.
Start running through this thing. And like, so, here we go. Things are moving fast, Tyler.
Well, you know what? Yeah. Look, he's going to be a senior, man. Enjoy it while you can. I was just, the day of playing catch in the front yard with your boy is almost over, my friend.
No, check this out though. He said, I want to go backpacking. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got to embrace it while you can.
You got to go, right? You got to go.
365 more days, my friend. And then you are, you're waving at a tarmac. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, happy Father's Day, right?
Yeah, same to you.
Happy Father's Day coming up.
Yeah, it's a good day. It's a good day.
I don't know what's gonna come, but in my house every day is Father's Day. I think family taking good care of me.
That's a good thing. You got good people taking care of you. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So what's been on your mind lately, man?
Oh man, I'll go right to the notes, right? I'll go right to the notes, and I jotted down this question: how long will you wait before you demand the best of yourself?
That's a good question.
And I got state conference coming up, right? So we're going to be speaking. We have the opportunity to address, a couple hundred people virtually. Virtually, this is the last one. So there's a lot of things on my mind. But how long will you wait before you demand the best of yourself? Because I'm telling you right now, I'm giving Mike Freeman a pass on a few things that I should probably say that's enough.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Man, it's
some things like, commitments, promises that I've been making. Some of them even on this podcast program.
Okay.
And the other day I saw Gary Miller. He put a shout out. He's doing some things. That guy puts in 10,000 steps before he sits down.
It's pretty good, man. That's pretty good.
And his whole take on it is make one promise to yourself, keep that promise, and watch it unlock other things in your life.
I like it. Well, we've talked about being finishers,
With Gary.
With Gary,
man.
Yeah. I like that. I like that question,
Yeah.
You gotta make some headway. You gotta make some promises. You gotta keep some commitments. And that's a big one, That's a big one.
How about you? What's going through Tyler Gould's brain these days?
Well, I don't know, man. I'm excited to have Andrea on the show. I've been thinking about just making your path, and trailblazing and being the one who gets out in front and leads the way and does things differently, and
does things differently.
And I like that. I like that idea. I like the courage that it takes to figure some things out on your own, and let some people follow you.
Yeah, I kind of dig that. I've got Gavin Spencer's kid right now is backpacking through Europe.
Nice.
And all of the adventures that go with that, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody at work today, and she was talking about how her mom's since passed of breast cancer. She got a diagnosis and was given 9 months, right?
Yeah.
And so I stopped everyone in the conversation just at lunch at work. And it was just like, if you had 9 months, right? If you had 9 months, what would you do? People started throwing things out there. And it was like kind of along the spirit of going your own way. Someone throws out Eiffel Tower in Paris. Like, okay, is that your thing or is that a thing?
Yeah.
Right? Is that because I got to see that before I die? Or is that passionate? Is that something passionate that because if I got 9 months, I'm not living someone else's list.
Right.
I'm not checking off because the book says 10 places to see before you die.
But in 9 months, man, I mean, that's an interesting question because honestly, I don't know if I have a list. I mean, if I had 9 months, I think I'd hunker down with the people that I want to hunker down with.
Yeah, to me, that'd be 9 months of game nights.
9 months of barbecues.
It'd be 9 months of backyard barbecues.
Yeah.
It'd be 9 months of midnight Slurpee runs.
9 months of hitting the beach with the people you love. I mean,
it'd be 9 months of me trying to talk Kelly Freeman into skinny dipping. 23 years, brother, still unsuccessful. But I'd go hard 9 months trying to talk her into it. But you're right. I don't even know if I'd pack a bag.
Yeah, I just think that
I got 9 months. I think I would do some work here in my own town, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'd do some work in the walls of my own home,
Yeah, how about that? Yeah.
So
I don't know. One more trip to Torrey Pines wouldn't be bad.
No, I'd do that with the right people. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
That ain't bad.
Let's do it. Hey, so we got Andrea.
Let's go see what she would do with 9 months.
Let's do it. Let's kick the doors open and bring Andrea in here.
So I yielded, Tyler. I believe you're like the host. You're the host with the most here. So
well, the only way that works out is because we have auto record going on. You know what I mean? We'd be in deep trouble. What's up, Andrea? How are you?
Andréa Simmons, welcome to the richest men in town. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you gentlemen doing?
Oh, we're excited. We're living life, Andrea. We're living life.
That's right.
That is amazing.
And
I
it's
love to hear
fast.
that.
It's moving fast these days,
I do know. It is definitely not slowing down for any of us. That's for sure.
If you think about it, today's the slowest it's going to be ever.
Really? Is that what you're calling it?
You think about it, it's not going to slow down tomorrow, right? So today, the experience we just had, that's the slowest life is going to be moving for us.
Okay.
That's wild.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
That's an interesting thought. I mean, I think we listened to a speaker a few months ago that talked about that, right? And said that just because of the pace with which technology advances, that today is the slowest we will ever have, because tomorrow will be that much faster with new advances in technology.
It's like the merry-go-round. It's like the merry-go-round at the playground, right? Like when you're hanging on in the center, it's kind of manageable. But as you get out on that edge,
and you want to get out on that edge, No,
you don't, because you're gonna fly right off of that
Hang
merry-go-round.
on and kind of lean out and see how long you can hold.
You get it going, and your legs are whipping, and pretty soon you're taking out other kids.
Yeah, man, that's
and they're
good
like,
stuff.
dude, you're 40. Get off the merry-go-round.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure they've taken merry-go-rounds out of playgrounds anyways, just because someone got sued, probably.
I'm sure they have.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah,
that was a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Andrea, who is a lawyer, should know this.
She knows these things.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Exactly.
Hey, anybody that has been hurt by a merry-go-round injury, you can call up our friend Andréa Simmons. This episode is brought to you by the legal services of Andréa Simmons.
That's right.
We'll get you a class action lawsuit going against merry-go-rounds, Andrea.
I do believe that there's a warning sign at the part that says enter at your own risk.
That's true. Yeah. So Andrea, we were chatting before you joined us, and Mike was talking. Mike, let's talk about your scenario that you just.
Yeah, we'll break it down. So today, usually we try to keep things. We try to keep lunch conversation light and irreverent, even, Tyler Gould, at the Shasta County Office of Education.
Wow.
But today it got
sounds
a little
like
heavy.
A party place,
Today it got a little heavy. We had a coworker sharing out her mom. Her mom was diagnosed. Her mom's since passed away of breast cancer, and she was kind of sharing what that diagnosis was like. And she was given 9 months, and she made it a year and a half. And we got into quality of life and that kind of thing. And then I stopped and I just said, all right. If you had 9 months, if you got a call and you had 9 months, what's on the list, right? What are you doing with those 9 months? And people started throwing out things that you would expect to be on that list, right? Like, oh, I got to see the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And I stopped and it's just like, why? Right? Is that because Google says that's 10 things you got to see before you die? Or are you infatuated, always have been infatuated with Paris? Because like you got 9 months. Like then that got Tyler and I into thinking like, what would be on your list? Because I don't want to spend the last 9 months of my life living someone else's list, right? So then that got us thinking. But we thought we'd throw it out to you, Andrea. Like you had 9 months. What kind of things would you be? Would you be Paris? Would you be Australia? Would you be right? You're in Vegas. I mean, you could do some damage with 9 months in Vegas.
You do Paris right there.
Right there.
already done. I've already done Paris, actually. So I took my daughter to Paris, got to see the Eiffel Tower in person. It was absolutely beautiful, amazing. So that one is not on my list. And actually, so I'm a different type of person. I think more on a deeper, more spiritual level. 9 months, I'm excited because I'm like, okay, bet I know when I'm about to go meet my maker. So I'm good. I'm preparing for that, right? That's what I'm preparing for, because I've just found it, things in life, like I could plan so many things in this life and they still won't happen the way that I want them to happen. And so do I want to take the time planning, or do I just want to take the time just living, right? And so if I had 9 months, I would just live. I would live to the fullest, as though every day was a day closer to the end for me.
Because it is, right?
Because it is.
It's the same truth we talked about. To this day is not going to get right. Tomorrow's not going to get any slower than today was. Today is about to be done. And that was another day closer for us to do the things that we need to do to prepare ourselves to meet our maker. I love that.
Well, and there's so many, it's distractions, that's the thing. That's like, I feel like you got 9 months and you take that number away, right? And just say, what's the priority? right? Is the priority to jump on a plane and go see the Great Wall? Or is it to hang out with the people that you love and deepen relationships and to, find yourself in a better place, period,
Well, it makes me think of Portia Louder, Tyler. Like, she's facing a jail sentence. She's got a date in court. She knows she's going to be spending some time away from her 5 kids and her husband. Mm-hmm. And every day leading up to that court date is heavenly, is a gift. She's taking her kid to school, and what was daily just drudgery and monotony is beautiful, right? And I think that, man, to have eyes to see that, to have eyes to see that, that's what I love. Your living, not planning reminds me of we've got a startup, a venture hub here in Redding, California. Mm-hmm. And they've got this sign on the wall. It says, we have a business plan. It's called Do Stuff.
That's a good business plan, right?
We could spend so much time planning on paper, right?
Yeah.
Planning out our lives on paper, but it's in the living. It's in the doing.
Exactly. So live.
That's it. Live.
Well, we define living as some backyard barbecue, some cornhole, some beach, right? Some movie theater, and get the extra butter.
Just be with the people that you want to be with. You know what I mean? I think that's
surround yourself right with the people that you want to be with. Have the peace that you want to have in your life. That's when you get to tell people, I only got 9 months. I don't have time to deal with you. Be gone. Right. Yeah. Be gone. You and your foolishness. You can be gone. But I am not.
I don't have time for this.
I love that, because I think that sometimes we let other people take control of our precious commodity that is the time that we have, right?
Absolutely.
We talk about time moving fast and things moving quick, and it's always going to move quick, but there's no way to slow it down. But I guess the way that we could slow it down would be to get rid of the things that eat up that commodity and use that towards something that's more meaningful.
But,
absolutely.
And there's that fine line, right? There's that fine line, because as Christians, we're trying to love people. We're trying to be charitable to people.
Who said you're not loving people by not allowing them to come in, because they're not willing to give you any of their time. So if you're not willing to sacrifice your time and let me fill it up with a bunch of nonsense, you're definitely not going to get mine, right? Yeah. So what is non-Christ-like about that, right?
We prioritizing.
That's it. That's it.
I like it. I'm on board with that.
Okay, Andrea, I'm going to go with that. Next time, be like, you know what? I've got this finite commodity called time, and you're burning it right now.
Hey.
Let's land the plane and tell me what you need, because I got to go. Pretty
much, right? I'm telling you, that's what you got to tell the kids, too. Because I swear they come and want to take up all your time. Like, I charge hourly.
You just start that taxi meter, right?
You want me to hit the clock? Do you want me to hit the clock? Because you about to start getting charged in a minute. You've all taken up all my time.
I love it. Well, I love that thought, though, and I think that going back to, maybe Portia and Chad that's a great example, right? Just knowing that the freedom that you have is going to come to an end. And then maybe that's the place where you realize how much freedom you actually had. Maybe there's a reset somewhere in there that we all need to hit, where we just start to really appreciate those things that we think are monotony, because some of those things are pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we got a small smack in the face with this whole COVID thing too. Don't you guys think? That it made us do a reset on how we spend our time.
That's true.
And what we're spending our time. So we actually all throughout the world got a smack in the face with our time, and had to do a reset ultimately.
Yeah.
And do a shift and a refocus on what is important, what really is important in our lives, and what do we want to spend our time on doing? Do we want to spend our time commuting to that job that we absolutely do not like anyway, and we're spending 2.5, 3 hours one way to get to a job that we don't even like?
Yeah.
To get back in the car, to go back home to do the same thing the next day. So it forced all of us to rethink about our time and how we're using it and utilizing it in the best way.
Yeah, Andréa Simmons, were you a sourdough bread baker?
No, I was not. I could not get my starter kit. Man, I love me some sourdough. I'm telling you. I looked it up. I was like, okay, maybe I'll start my own starter. Yeah, I never got around to it. So,
but isn't it interesting how quick though right? So COVID hits. Boom, reset. Okay, right. We're freaking out because this thing is scaring everybody, right? So you're hunkering down in your home. You're not touching anything outside. You're just hanging out with the people that you love. And you're like, man, this is it. This is it. A year goes by and you're like, come on, man. I got to
exactly that. Now you're complaining like,
I got to get that.
Yeah, how quickly we normalize it. I'll tell you, I sat in my backyard furniture for the first time in COVID. In COVID, like it's like we're sitting out there and we're having barbecue, and it's like, why do these chairs just sit out here? No one ever sits out here.
Yeah. We paid $1,500 for the set to just sit out in the sun.
That's right.
Yeah, and you got a fire pit and you're walking around the block with your wife. And it's like, what? Okay, how quickly we forget that.
And the neighbors are like, oh, he's married.
Yeah.
She does have a husband. Wow.
Seriously. Oh my gosh, man.
Hey, before we cruise into this, so Andréa, I'm excited to have some time with you. Like I said in our pre-show, friend of Tyler's is a friend of mine, and I trust his judgment, and he knows people living that rich life. And so I'm excited to get into that life. But first, Tyler, I got to know, some folks, right? What stands out about Andréa's life that you just love and you wanted to torture her by bringing her on your podcast?
Well, I there's a lot of things I love about Andréa and her whole family, but I would tell you that I love Andréa's energy, and I love her faith. I love that about Andréa, and I love her resiliency. I think that's a great quality, and she exudes that and is, not one to sit still for too long. She's not going to let the world dictate anything. She's going to dictate the terms. And I love that. I think that's an important quality. And I've seen that in her. I've seen her instill that in her children. And, it's admirable. And I think we can all learn something from those qualities for sure.
I would ask you to cross-examine Andréa, but like you're not gonna argue with none of that, right?
I am not gonna argue.
I nailed that. Come on.
He nailed it.
So let's get into it a little bit with your family. He mentioned instilling those things in your children. Let's get the rundown. Can you give us what the Simmons family looks like?
Oh, wow. So the Simmons family. So to kind of give you a little bit, my husband has been working overseas for the past 10 years. So he contracts overseas. He's overseas right now in Saudi Arabia. And so I considered myself always as a married single mom is what I called myself. And so that means that I have 3 boys and 1 girl. And so I had to be mom and dad, and I had to hunker down on those boys to let them know at the onset, look, don't cross me. Do not cross me. I grew up with 4 brothers. So I went toe to toe with my brothers on a daily. And so I wanted to make sure my boys knew that nothing was getting past me. And if you ask any of my kids to this day, who are they more afraid of? They will always say that they're more afraid of me. Always, hands down. And so I run a no nonsense ship. Let's say that in the Simmons home.
No shenanigans.
No shenanigans. I do allow my children to speak for themselves because that's the only way that they're going to learn how to speak in the world. If I dictate and cut into how they feel or them expressing themselves, then it doesn't allow them to learn how to be able to do that when they're interacting with people outside of our home. So I always kind of gave them the freedom to speak their mind. It's just a matter of what you say, right? And it's how you say it. So you can speak your mind. You just better watch your tone and you better watch what you're saying to me.
Watch your tone.
Other than that, we're good.
Total freedom.
And so, yeah, total freedom. Can you not
yeah,
tell?
I like
it. That was total freedom. And so they knew. And one thing about my kids, they always knew what to expect from me. So for instance, my daughter would say, I literally could hear your voice in the background. Whenever I thought about doing something, I already knew what you were going to say. I knew it. And so I was like, yep, nope, I'm not going to go ahead and do that because I already know what mom's going to say. And my boys say, I swear, I don't know how you do it, but you find out everything. I said, I know, don't I? So don't ever think that you have done anything that I don't know. And I always tell my kids, I say, just because I haven't said anything, that doesn't mean that I don't know.
Yeah.
So
what give us the ages real quick, Andrea.
Okay, so my oldest is 26, and so I can't technically tell people I'm 25 anymore if my oldest is 26. So I guess I'm 30 now. I guess. So my oldest is 26, and he's a boy, and then I have a 22-year-old daughter, and who is an absolute angel. I would clone her a million times. Then I have a 19-year-old son. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then
not so angelic.
I have a 16-year-old son. Let's just say the 19-year-old tested every ounce of patience that a parent could ever have. Like every ounce. Like I wondered how I made it through it, okay? Let alone him. So
and you both did it.
We both did. And we survived.
It's impressive.
We made it to the other side. And so yeah.
I love it. So let me ask you, because you've got 4 kids and your husband is overseas a lot working, he's making sacrifices for the family too, to help support. He's out there doing that. What has raising 4 kids taught you about being the person that you want to be?
Wow. So raising 4 kids. Well, so I grew up in Detroit, and the background that I came from kind of helped me set what I wanted to do in my life. I came from a family that education wasn't huge. It wasn't a big thing. And so I knew at the early onset that education is huge for me. I always wanted to go to college. I always wanted to pursue a law career from the age of 5. Like that was it. I'm going to be an attorney. And so I knew that that's what I wanted. I had kids younger in my prime. Thank goodness. That was good for them, because I'm telling you, my patience just went out the window once I got older. So it was good for them. And so what that meant for me is that now I have to show my kids that even though obstacles may get in your way, that doesn't stop you from achieving what it is that you have set for yourself. So what I did and what I took from that was that, okay, yes, I have 4 kids. However, that doesn't mean that my goal and my dream of becoming an attorney has to go away. Who says that it has to go away? Yeah. It only goes away if that's what I want to do, if I want to let that dream go. And so instead, I used it as a teaching tool for my kids, my fight for me reaching the level of professional success that I wanted to reach. And so I use that as my teaching tool to show my kids that no matter what happens in your life, no matter what that hill, that bump, that ditch, whatever you want to call it, no matter what happens, that you still have the choice and the decision to move forward and to continue on with the goal that you have in mind for yourself. So
I love that.
Hold on. There's so much, right? There's so much there. I'm dying to know. So I've dedicated my life to education, and I am dying to know where that dream comes from at 5 years old.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
and I don't know.
And it's not modeled, right? You're not, your mom or your dad isn't a lawyer. Sounds like
my mom and my dad didn't even graduate high school. Okay.
So here
they didn't even graduate high school.
Let's talk about this trailblazer, right? Let's talk about this. Where does that come from? Because I know obstacles were presented. I know challenges. You probably were like, well, maybe a paralegal, right? Maybe
I did think about that at the time.
Take this bachelor's degree, and maybe that's good. Or I'll get that associate's degree. And so at 5 years old, you got this thought. I'm curious, like, have you any answer for where that might have come from?
I have no true answer other than the fact that I've always been told that I've been very argumentative and very direct. So I've always been very direct, even from a very young age. And I dictated a lot. I'm a great dictator. Maybe I should have chose that career.
Well, hey, life is long. You could still do that.
I can still achieve that.
Not over yet. Yeah,
my next goal, dictator. I know I got to move out of the U.S. I know I get it.
But Mike, I like that word, trailblazer. I like that thought of, or that idea of, forging your own path and.
Because that's punk rock, Tyler.
Right. It is. It's like you're just going to figure it out, right? You're just going to, there's no model in front of you that says, hey, if you do these things, this is the result you'll see. You've kind of got this far out vision of, hey, this is what I want. And I'm just going to plow through it and see if I can get there. And I like that idea. I think there's a lot of value that comes from that. In fact, I would say that probably the 4 kids that are following you around, right, when they're young and seeing you pursue these things, I mean, that's got to be impactful. I mean, that's got to be something, right? And
gobbling that up,
right? There's got to be there's definitely value there. And so let me ask you, Andre, what do you hope your kids learn from your path of pursuing, let's just say, education at this point?
I hope that my kids learn that nothing is unachievable. Absolutely nothing. That we put our own restraints on. And that even if we allow someone else or we call that someone else has put restraints on us, we still have allowed that to happen. So we are still in control of having restraints put on us. And I hope that my kids know that they have the ability to achieve everything that they go after.
Yeah. I think I shared with Mike today, we were kind of texting back and forth this morning, and I shared that the thought by Robert Frost, right? 2 roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And I love that thought that, maybe the easier path is the one that's already been bushwhacked for us, but there's something greater in that path where we just kind of have to push ourselves and see what's out there.
Absolutely. And like, just to add a little bit to that. So I'm the 5th of 6 kids. So it's 6 kids in my own family. And I was the first to graduate high school out of the kids. And I really don't know, Mike, I really don't know where that drive came from. I just knew that it was a cycle in my family that I wanted to stop. I wanted that education, that lack of education cycle to stop. And I was like, it's not happening in my generation. I have cousins that didn't even make it to high school. They dropped out in middle school. So I'm just like looking at my family. When I was 21, I found out my grandmother couldn't read or write. My grandmother, I'm not talking my great grandmother, I'm saying my mother's mother couldn't read or write. And I was just in awe, like, oh my goodness, this can't keep happening.
So that's interesting, because at what point is there a point in time where you sort of see those things happening and you decide, I want to do something different? Like, I want it to be different for me.
That's exactly what I saw. I said to myself, this is going to be different. It wasn't that I wanted to be, this is going to be different.
I love that. Yeah.
But did you see the detours in their lives, right? I mean, you're probably watching this. I don't want to assume or speculate, but we can name the detours of what gets in the way of things like college and high school graduation, right? And you're probably seeing those things and you're like, okay, duly noted, right? I'm going to learn from other people's mistakes.
Right.
And I'm not going to fall for that one. And I'm not going to fall for that one. And then I'm going to also probably go out on a limb here and assume, though, that while education may not have been modeled, I bet you had some strong people in your life where maybe they weren't holding degrees, but they had some strength. They had some inner strength. And it's like, okay, right, I'm going to do that. Like you said, you know, that married single parent, I was raised by a single mom, and I don't think there's anything stronger under heaven than a single mother, right? Or a single father. Like parents doing what is designed to be done by two alone is difficult, right? But you probably had some model, you know, that grandma might not be able to read and write, but I bet you she could tell you some life stories and some lessons that she learned, right?
Yeah, and that is just, you know, one of the things that I'm very observant of my surroundings. So I just kind of paid attention to what was going on around me and saw, okay, I see what they're doing. And I see what they're doing, like you said, Mike. And yeah, I'm going to go on a different path. And I hope that for myself as well. And then I get pregnant my senior year of high school. And so it's like, all right, so what are you going to do now? Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely still finishing school. And so I did. I finished school and I did not take a break. I went straight to college. I had my baby in April over spring break. Do you hear me? And I was back at school.
We got to pause here, right? We got to pause here and talk about this one for a second. Because, you know, we talked about like Tyler threw out that word distractions earlier when we were talking about kind of the pace of life and, you know, and making sure we're living the life we want to live. But having a baby your senior year is like capital, all caps, bold italicized distraction, right? Like, I'm just thinking of the numbers in my head of the number of people that go through that situation and graduate from high school and then go right into college. And you're probably you're an anomaly, right? So when you get that news, walk me through that look in the mirror, right?
Well, first thing was I was in denial. I was like, no, there's no way possible. No way. Didn't tell my mom for a very long time. And ended up getting a severe sinus infection that caused me to be hospitalized. That's how severe my sinus infection was. And they took a pregnancy test at the emergency room. And they told my mom, well, she can't take any of the medication that we gave her because she's pregnant. And I was like, no, it's got to be wrong, right? I was like, no way, no way, nope, not even. And so she's like, so I hear that you're pregnant. And I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. They must have got my stuff mixed up with someone else's or whatever. And so I was in denial for a good little while. And then reality sunk in when I had to go home. Well, I was determined to not keep the child. So that was the first thing. I was like, nope, because I got a plan. And this is like interrupting my plan. And the guy that I was with at the time, he kept promising me, I'll come pick you up after school. I'll come pick you up. And he never would come pick me up after school. And eventually it just it got too late in the process. And I was like, well, it's too late now. And I was like, and my mom knows. So guess what? Your parents are going to know too. So his parents got the phone call and they knew as well. And so I was like, okay, this is just, it's a little bump, but it's not going to stop me. I can still do this. And, however, I think that I know for a fact that it was probably the most disappointing thing in my mom's life at that time, because she did have high hopes for me. She was like, okay, this one's going to make it. I can tell she's going to make it. High school honors throughout everything. And then boom, you get to senior year and you get pregnant. Still graduated with honors though. So that was a good thing.
That's great.
And I made a decision with myself at that time. Look, either you're going to let this hinder you or you're going to use it and you're going to keep going. And that's what I had to do. I didn't have a choice because I knew that I had a plan and I couldn't get too far off that path.
Hold on. So talk to me about use it. You're either going to,
I had to use that experience
or use it, right?
Or use it. Yep.
What does that mean when you're having that thought?
And so with me, what that means is that either I'm going to use it and I'm going to learn from it and it's going to build me and make me stronger, or I'm going to take it and I'm going to allow it to tear me down and prevent me from being able to move forward. So how am I going to use it? And I'm always looking at the experiences that I have in my life and how I can use them, whether they're positive or negative experiences, how I can use them in order to propel forward.
Andrea, have you ever dissected that a little bit as far as how did you let that motivate you and push you? You know, because sometimes we have these difficult things that come up in our lives. And sometimes we shrink, right? And we walk away from that. And sometimes we just, through maybe sheer panic, we just get through it, right? Because we're just like, I got no other choice. I'm just going to get through it. But I'm curious because I love that thought of either I let it be a stumbling block that takes me off of my path, or I use it to propel me forward in the path. I'm curious, have you ever dissected what that looks like as far as using it? Like what was that thought process? Was it, hey, I now have a child and I got to do good right by this child? Or was it, I mean, what does that look like?
Yes, for me. So when I had a child, though, I turned 18 the day before I had him. So my birthday is the day before him. I turned 18 and then the next day I was delivering a baby. And so it was no longer about me, right? So it was about me still having a path, but my everything had to focus around him. So how am I now going to help this child know that they can achieve any and everything that they want in life? The only way that I can do that now is by example, because typically you've already kind of gone through all of your schooling or you're currently in college when you decide to marry and have children or whatever. And so your kids they kind of see the end result. They don't always see the process and what it took to get there. And so now he's a part of the process.
Yeah.
And how am I going to teach him with this process? How can I help him know that he can achieve, and he can be able to be successful in his life, whatever that success looks like for him.
Yeah.
That's a powerful card to play as a parent when you can play it, right? Like, hey, son, look at this. Look at what I'm laying down. Look at the life I'm trying to do here. And that's, we're not saying we're perfect, right?
Right.
Like, and I remember as a kid, every time I'd say, hey, look at me, it never ended well, right? So, but like, I think that having that conversation with your son really probably resonates and hits hard, you know? And I think, I also think of a quote that Tyler shared. We've been doing this a year, Tyler. So who knows when you shared this one, but it was from Thomas S. Monson. And the idea was that any excuse, no matter how valid, weakens character. You know, and you have a valid excuse that you could play. And a lot of people are like, yep, your plan's going to change, girl, because that's a valid thing. And that's a really hard thing. But out of that, you forge this character, right? This will that's been there since you were 5. Right? Yeah. Probably, let's be real. You were born.
I was born
into this world with some gifts, and those gifts are being challenged that senior year. And you're like, I see this. I'm going to use this. And I love that thought of propelling, right? Because I always talk to my kids about, you know, the slingshot. You pull it back to go forward. And sometimes life sets you back. But if you use that idea of like, no, I'm going to use this setback, right? Like Dave Voigtland,
right, yeah.
I'm going to use this setback to set up my comeback. You just watch me. So I got this question. I'm dying to know. We don't need to put people on blast.
Okay.
But man, it would be nice to, right? Here you are now.
For sure. For sure.
Here you are now, successful, doing your thing. Do you ever think of people that along the way looked at you and for whatever reason said, no, you can't?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And some of those people that were close to me did that. And all I could say was, you watch and see. You watch and see.
Yeah. Because
I was more concerned with proving to myself than proving to someone else. When you're doing things for someone else, you're not really in it for you. And so I knew that my success had to be for me. It had to be about me and what I wanted. And I couldn't ever make it about someone else. I couldn't ever make it about me trying to prove someone else wrong or to prove to someone else that I can do it or that I have done it. It always was about me. And so that's when I made it.
Yeah.
So Andrea, I don't know. There are people spending a lot of money for coaching to learn what you just shared for free on the Richest Men in Town podcast, right? When you did it for you, and Tyler, that kind of goes to that question that I was throwing out there at the beginning before Andrea joined us, was just like, you know, how long will you wait before you demand the best of yourself?
Yeah.
And that's really kind of one of those wisdom keys, right? One of those keys to success is expecting the best from yourself, loving yourself, right? Extending grace and forgiveness, you know, for the things that but there are so many people that are trying to do things to prove for others, right? They have this idea that maybe my dad will love me if, right? Or I'm going to go do this thing to prove this guy wrong. And it's like, no, you're not doing those things for the right reason. And chances are that motivation is going to falter. But when it's the man in the glass and you're just doing it to be true to the best of yourself, there's a well that springs up forever, right?
Absolutely.
That's pretty
that's
cool. We're only in our senior year, Tyler.
No doubt, man. No doubt.
We're only in our senior year, first kid. We haven't even talked about how she meets the overseas guy. Right.
Well, let's talk for a second, if we can. I'm just about you as a young girl. Let's rewind a minute. I just kind of want to get the dynamic of the family. Like, what are you learning from the family as you're growing up? What are some of the lessons that you learn from mom, and it sounds like mom, you said she was disappointed that year, but mom's got to be beaming ear to ear with all the things that you and your kids and your family are doing. But what were you learning as a young person at home, learning from mom and dad and brothers and sisters?
So one of the things I learned, my parents did separate pretty young when I was really young. I actually spent 3.5 years in foster care when I was young. So I started kindergarten when I was with my foster mom, who is an absolute, I love her to death. She is still a part of my life.
Still a part of your life.
Still a part of my life.
That's awesome.
Our birthdays are on the same day.
Oh,
so
get out of here.
yeah, so we have a very strong bond and connection. And I actually just spoke with her earlier today to see how she was doing and how awesome. Things are going for her. And so she gave me a different dynamic of how family was. She was a foster mom and she was a single mom, but she was a homeowner. So she owned her own home and all those things. So I saw a lot of those things with her. And then within my own home, my father was abusive. And so my mother separated from him when we were really young. And so she became a single mom of 6. And we moved a lot. We moved around a lot. We lived in a bunch of different places, and we lived with a bunch of different family as well. And so it was a completely different dynamic. And so I would escape to who's now my godmother. I was like, you need a title, Mom. So I was like, you're my godmother. So I would escape to her home when I wanted that stability, when I wanted to be stable, and I wanted to be in a place that I didn't have to keep moving around so much. And so I would escape to her home, and her door was always open. So though my family life was a little hectic and a little not very common, right. With a lot of people, my mother, one of the best qualities of my mother that I love and appreciate from her was her faith. She always had a strong faith. And that was something that I definitely wanted to take from her, was the level of faith that she had, because she always knew whatever we were going through, we would still make it through it. And we did. And we did. I mean, because I'm here today. Look at me now. So I made it through it. And so the family dynamic growing up was different, and it wasn't ideal in how I would have loved for it to have been, or how I would have pictured it for myself. However, it was what I had. And so,
but I love all of that, because there's a couple things, right? Mike, you asked, what do I love about Andréa? And I said resilience, right? And here's something that's interesting, right? I didn't know this about Andréa and your background. I knew some, but not all of that. And I just can't help but think, like, your mom's going through this. She's single mom, 6 kids, bouncing from place to place, but she's got this thought that she's conveying to you, at least that you're picking up, which is, it's going to work out. Like, we're going to be okay. And, now as I'm sitting here listening to that, and I'm thinking, as I'm describing Andréa as resilient, right? I mean, where does that come from? There's this,
Tyler, I know why you love her, because the hustle.
Yeah, absolutely.
The grind.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it doesn't matter. It's like Joseph in Egypt, right? You put some people in places and they are going to bloom where they're planted, even in the most dire of circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I love that. And I love that you can see her faith, right? I love that you can see your mom's faith. And that would be my question, because that's one of the things I'm questioning right now, today, just in my own life, in my own interaction with people, right? I want to be like Nephi and be like, let us be faithful. But I think it's like, okay, Mike, but what does that look like in 2021? Mm-hmm. Right? What does that look like? And that would be my question to you. When you admire your mom's faith, what did it look like growing up, that faith? Did you see her? Did she preach? Did she lecture? Did she
pray?
Did she pray? What did it look like?
She did. She prayed. She prayed a lot. And we actually, excuse me, we went to a lot of different denominations as well. So we were probably in a different church like every Sunday. So, however, she prayed a lot, and she tried to remove some of what we call the evils in our home. So we didn't watch TV for a good little while and listen to music and things like that. And so she tried to take the different teachings that she was learning and tried to implement them in our home with 6 kids, right? 4 of them are boys, so you can only imagine. And so she tried to take that and she tried to bring it into our home. And knowing that our home was broken, right? What people would consider to be broken, she tried to allow her faith and her being able to utilize the strength of the Lord to fill the void that we were having in our home. And so I think that that's what helped her be so resilient, because, you know, there's a saying that says the Lord blesses those who are out there, you know, doing it, and they're making it happen. He looks over women and their children and things like that. And he did. I know he did. And and I trust and believe that he has been there and been through and helped us through so many things and so many times. And I've just seen it. I've seen and witnessed the blessings from her faith. I had 3 brothers that were healed by her faith and through her prayer. And so I was able to see and witness those things. And so I knew at a very young age that faith existed and it was necessary for me to have.
I can't get enough of that fill the void, you know. And you said, look, it wouldn't have been something I chose, right? It wasn't perfect. It was broken, even using that word to describe it. But where there's faith in that home, we're just hoping that, you know, that Jesus Christ can fill the void, you know. And I think that with him, all things are possible, right? And you know, almost like that, Lord, I believe, help thou mine unbelief. Mm-hmm. Like acknowledging that there's gaps, acknowledging that there's shortcomings, acknowledging that, look, I don't necessarily have the perfect model here, but I have what I need.
Well, and I love that I love that your mom, you talk about being in a different church every Sunday. I really do love and admire the search. Like I think that's such a big deal. You know, it doesn't matter what building you're in or what preacher or who's talking. I admire the search, right? You're looking for something and you're going to check it out and be where you think you can find some truth that's going to get you to the next place you need to be. I'm curious in that search as a child, watching your mom pray, attending all these different churches, when does faith become a pursuit of your own?
So that's interesting, because I did, you know, I kind of fell off a little bit of a path. And so it became a pursuit of my own when I was 20 years old. And so I'm 20 years old and I'm pregnant with my second child. And it's with the same father from the first child. And I, you know, we're high school sweethearts and we're what I consider we were still together. However, that was a whole nother story. And I find out I'm pregnant and I had broke it off with him probably like the day before because I was just tired. I was like, I'm just tired. I've been doing this on my own. I can keep doing it on my own. I don't need you. And so I broke it off with him. Next day I find out I'm pregnant. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And that's when I was like, I need to pray. Not like I should have did it before then, but I was like, okay, I need to pray.
Thought, Andrea, at this point, is this sort of like a unique revelation? Like I need to pray at this moment because of the things that are happening? It was a pattern that existed.
It was a pattern that had been buried. Let's say that, right? Yeah. So it had been buried with the life choices that I was making in my own life. And so and not to say that I was doing a lot, because when I had my first child, I was like, okay, first off, I was 18, so I wasn't legal to do anything anyway. However, I was like, I don't ever want my child to see me doing any of those things anyway. So I was like, I'm not drinking. I didn't ever smoke. And I stopped using profanity. I don't know. That was nice of me, right? And so those things weren't a part of it, but I was still not making the wisest choices, still being in a relationship with a guy that I wasn't married with, and and so on and so forth. And so here I am, I'm pregnant with a second child, and my first child is 3. And I'm like, okay, well, what am I gonna do? And I was like, okay, at this point, all I can do is turn to prayer, because I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing. I didn't have any medical insurance. And so I was like, okay, so how am I going to take care of myself and this baby that's growing in me? And I was like, okay, this is it. Lord, you're going to have to tell me, because if you don't tell me, I'm going to the clinic, so I need to kind of know what I need to do. And he gave me the signs that I'm going to be there for you. And he has been every step of the way.
I love the word you used, right? Tyler asked you if prayer was a unique thought, and you said it was buried by my choices. And I think it's so cool that when your back's up against the wall, it gets unburied real quick. All that other stuff kind of burns away, and it's like, you're a daughter of God and you are in need of help. And that instinct, right? It's almost like an instinct.
Right.
And it's not a maternal or paternal, it's just like son of God, daughter of God, call home, right? You're up against it, and you're looking to climb another mountain, and you're thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And instantly, all of those choices that you were doing, Tyler and I we're always marveled at the idea of that ember of faith. So many people, when we sit down and intentionally listen to their stories and we talk to them about faith, they'll say, "Oh, I was off the path, Mike." Right? Like I wasn't. Let's tell it how it was. I was making poor choices, but man, in an instant, it was back. Right? In an instant, I had what I needed. In an instant, I received revelation. And when I hear those things, I think revelation is for those pure people that go to church every Sunday, live the commandments, do everything right, cross T's, dot I's. They're receiving revelation. I'm learning. It's not like that. It's not like that. Revelation is a gift from God, and gifts come to those that he loves. And shocker, he loves all of us.
Regardless of where we're at.
Regardless of where we're at.
Yeah.
And regardless of what we've done, because it's about what we can do. It's about who we can be. It's about where we are going, or even what's in our heart.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you, when the heart goes, he's got a hard time working with you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Right? But if you keep that heart soft, amazing things happen and things get unburied. I love the way you said that.
And then he'll give us ways to soften the heart, right? I mean, that's the reality of it, right? But I do love the idea, though, that Mike, you talk about revelation, you talk about that, connection to God. I love the idea that, because we have had this story told in a lot of different ways from a lot of different people that found themselves or thought they were in a place that was unredeemable, right? That was so far gone that they couldn't get back. And then, these thoughts that ember begins to glow, right? And they have these small moments that say, wait a second, I can turn this around, or wait a second, there's a different way that I can do this. And I think that, I mean, I hope that people listen to you, Andréa, and have a renewed sense of hope in that a connection hasn't been deleted. It may have been buried, right, by choices, but it hasn't been cut off. And I love that. I think that's powerful.
I'm even thinking of the conversation I had with kids up at youth conference a couple of weeks ago, talking to them about, you know, their story. God is in their lives from the beginning. And if I can just get on a little soapbox for a second and just praise your foster mom, because I just heard today that here where I live, we don't have enough foster parents. And social workers are sleeping with kids in their cars waiting for transitions.
Aww.
So let that sink in, right? If anybody's thinking, what can I do to make a difference? And they're in a position, maybe consider that. Because right place, right time sounds like she gave you a little vision of what you might be able to have, right? Or maybe what a home could look like, what stability could look like.
Absolutely.
And you get that taste, and who knows, maybe that sets you on like, okay, that's what I want. I want what I had right there. I want how it felt. I want all of that. Let's go get it. So off my soapbox.
Yeah.
But that
good.
person.
Yeah.
Whew,
I'm
place,
curious,
right time.
Yeah. I'm curious, Andréa, you talk about this moment, right, where you turn to prayer, and that's sort of this beginning of the faith journey for you. Can you talk a little bit about that faith journey and what role faith has played in your life?
Absolutely. So from that point, right? Because we go to prayer, and when you haven't prayed for a while, you're thinking to yourself, what am I going to say? Right? How am I going to open this conversation up?
It's been a while, right?
It's been a minute, and he knows what I've been doing. Exactly. He knows everything. Right. So he knows what I've been doing. So how am I starting this conversation? Am I coming in with an apology, or am I coming in with an ask? Right? So because I really need my ask. However, I'm still sorry for what I did, but I really need my ask. So that's why I'm really here for this conversation. And so going into it it's like, okay, what do I need to do? And I think the first thing it was recognition, right? Recognizing what I've done. And okay, now I recognize it. Now help me be able to move past this, right? So I recognize it, and now I'm coming to you because I need your help in order to help me move past this. And so that's kind of how that conversation went. And I was like, okay, so I'm pregnant again. if you didn't know, right? It's here. I'm pregnant. And I don't know if, you want the spirit here or not. I know you want all your spirits here. I'm saying I don't know if it's coming through me. I don't have any health insurance. I do have a place to stay. I had a vehicle. I didn't have a job. So I'm like, I don't have any health insurance. I don't have a job. Where is this going? Where is this going for me? Because one of the things I promised myself that I would not ever put my kids on public assistance. As long as I was capable of working, I would not ever get on public assistance. And that was a promise that I made to myself because I grew up on and off public assistance. And it was, at times it was embarrassing for me, to be the kid to go to school. And one school we had the little tickets that you get your lunch for. And if you were a public assistance kid, your ticket was one color. And the kids whose parents bought theirs, your ticket was another color. So it's like now people know that you're on public assistance because you're using this pink ticket when the other kids got yellow tickets. I know, right?
What are we doing?
What are we doing, right? And so I was like, my kids won't ever be on public assistance as long as I'm capable of working. So I'm sitting here like, okay, how's this gonna work? Because I'm not getting on public assistance. We need to figure this out. And I had gone on an interview, and they called me back, and they were like, we want to offer you the position. And I was like, okay. And they're like, just so that you know, because we are restructuring everything, we're offering everybody health insurance. I was like, what? And that was my sign.
Yeah.
That was my sign. And I was like, okay, I hear you.
Wow. That's crazy.
I hear you.
Wow.
Okay, so I don't know if you've ever had this happen as a parent, but sometimes you're there for your kid and you help them, right? And maybe you give them what they need in their moment of need, and it's all loves, and it's all like, oh, I love you. I'm never gonna forget this. And a couple months go by, and they've forgotten what you've done for them, and they're right back asking for either the same help or more. Right.
Absolutely.
So you say that you clearly see God's hand in that job. What changes do you make?
So then it becomes, okay, so you got up your end of the bargain. What am I now? What am I now willing to do? And so, as I stated, I broke off my relationship with my high school, and we won't call him a sweetheart. We'll just call him a high school thing, right? And so I broke that off, and it's like, okay, I won't allow myself to get into another relationship like that. Okay, so now what's next? And what's interesting is that around this time, my mother was studying with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so she had been studying with the missionaries, and I would go by her house sometimes, and she would have her missionaries over, and she'd be like, oh, my missionaries are over. I'm like, okay, well, I'll come back and see you another time or whatever. I just was, I didn't have anything against them. I just was like, okay, this is her thing. So I let it be her thing. And like I said, we grew up knowing and having faith. It just was in different denominations. And so I kind of let her do her thing. And she didn't really share anything with us about what was really going on until her baptism. So then she invited us all to her baptism. And so all five of us went, because I have a brother who's been incarcerated for a while. So he wasn't there, but we all went. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And of course, the missionaries, what they do, they want to invite you, and can we come and see you? And I was like, yeah, you guys can come see me, whatever. But I was a single parent, so they actually couldn't come see me. So I was still going to the church with the guy that I was dating, but I didn't want to go there anymore. And so I started telling my mom that, well, I'll just take you to church so you're not walking or catching the bus on Sunday. So I would drop her off at church. And then my son, my 3-year-old, says, I like Grandma's church. It's quiet.
Wow, that's unheard of. Yeah, I like that.
I was like, okay, because so we grew up in Holiness Church of God in Christ. You got the tambourine, drums, the piano, and the organ, because you need both of them at the same time.
Gotta have it.
Hey, we're gonna throw a saxophone in there from time to time as well. Let's just bring out all the musical instruments, right? Let's just bring them all out. So when music was played, it got pretty loud in there. So I was like, let's just stay at Grandma's church. And so the more that I stayed at Grandma's church, the more the Spirit just kind of spoke to me. And subtly things just kind of progressed more and more. And I was open to learning. And so I allowed myself to be open and to be vulnerable, to allow the Spirit to work in my life and to be able to help me in the next step. And so, but like I said, I knew that I had to make some choices, and I had to make some commitments of my own. And was I willing to make those? And I was at that time, because I needed the Lord. So
Yeah.
I was like, I need you. So
I love that idea
it sounds
being
like you
open.
were familiar, right?
Right.
So,
That's it, Mike. I think that's the whole thing, right? I mean, if you talk about, having the experience where you make the choice to pray, right? And you kind of, you decide, well, shoot, what else have I got to turn to right now? I'm up against it. I'm going to go here. And I just kind of feel like that progression of, well, and I think there's a skill that shouldn't be ignored, which is the ability to recognize an answer, right? So when you have that experience, you receive this answer and you say, okay, shoot, he held up his end of the bargain. What do I have to do to hold up my end of the bargain? And really, the answer to what you have to do to hold up your end of the bargain is just start to recognize his hand, right, in your life.
Absolutely.
Like Mike talks about familiarity, I think that's it. I just love that.
Well, there's no way we're going to hold up our end of the bargain.
Right.
No way, right? No way.
Like,
No way.
But I love the idea of like, okay, and that question of what can be done, because I mean, I love where those questions come up in the scriptures. I love Saul on the road to Damascus, and it's like, oh Lord, what will that have me to do? Right. The second that you acknowledge and see God's hand in your life, it's like, okay, I understand that this is much bigger than me. Right. I'm a mom of 2, so I have evidence right here in front of me that it's bigger than me. But okay, what is it that I feel obligated or compelled to hold up my end of this? What does that look like? And the familiarity of keeping promises that you made to yourself. Mm-hmm. Because those promises are actually kind of mile markers, right? Like they're pointing you towards him when you could have easily said, again, a valid excuse weakens character. You could have said, you know what? I got 2 kids. I gotta go for the handout.
Right.
And if you go for the handout, you miss that sign.
Right.
Mike, I love this. We talked about the journey of like, Andrea, you mentioned going from church to church, right? And kind of exploring and searching as a child with your mom. I love that idea of the search, and then sort of that recognition of truth and channeling that into your life. Do you know what I mean? Like
it's kind of light. It's like light, right?
Yeah.
It's slowly, you don't get blasted, right?
Right.
It's gradually, it's like the sun rising, gradually that pattern of revelation, and you start to, the fog maybe clears up a little bit because, you said there were some choices and there were some things and you had buried some things. And as that sun slowly rises, you start to see your surroundings a little differently. You start to see yourself a little differently. You start to see, hey, there's a future here.
And you start to see where you find the light, right? I think there's something to be said for recognizing revelation, right? When it first comes, like we talked about that answer that you had, right?
Right.
And then being able to know that I can go back to that, right? I can go back to that source. I can recognize that revelation again, and I can continue, right? I mean, I think that's the pattern that we have to be involved in till the end of our days, right? Is
absolutely
turning back towards that and rechanneling ourselves in that line of revelation. I mean, saying, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I need. Right.
Right. Because, and it also helps because there comes a time in your life where for some apparent reason or whatever it is that you are going through, that you often don't have those same qualities of recognizing the light.
Sure. Absolutely.
In your life. And so then you start to doubt whether or not the light is still even there. And having that, what I call it my anchor, right? So having that anchor point that you can go back to and you can reference and you say, no, I can't deny the fact that the light exists because I've seen it here.
Yeah. Amen.
And whether or not my eyes are actually open at this very moment for me to see it again. What am I doing differently that I'm not recognizing the light now? It's not that the light has stopped shining. It's what am I doing differently in my life that I'm not recognizing it now?
I love that. And
that's
Mike, that's
so
that word remember
too.
all over again.
Yeah,
right?
but it's so important too to have relationships where sometimes other people help you with that.
Right.
For sure.
You know, bishops help you with that. Moms help you with that, right? Like, hey, I'm kind of losing my way here. Can you help me recalibrate? I'll even go a little weirder though, like, and you might be able to relate to this, Andréa, as you looked at your own journey of, you know, okay, I'll just start dropping mom off at church. And then pretty soon you find yourself sitting in a church pew, right? I would find myself reading the Book of Mormon and feeling these things. And I would close the book and look at it and be like, dude, you're reading the Book of Mormon. Like, what? You're hanging around LDS people and no one's drinking, or like, what do you do? You know? And I liken it to, I liken it to the Grinch when he starts to feel his heart, right? And it's like he had like he's got this like attack of conscience, right? Like now you start feeling bad when you do bad things. It's like, what are you doing to me, right?
Exactly.
But slowly you start to, and it really does feed your soul, right? I mean, these quiet places, church, you know, meeting with folks, reading things, you start to develop habits of prayer, and it's just feeding the good.
And I love that idea of that anchor point, right? That you can look back on. And I'm a huge believer in that. And I also feel like through life, right? It's our job that we're creating multiple points, right? It's sort of like saving a document on your computer at multiple times as you're working on it, right? Because you want to be able to go back and say, okay, it was here. I felt it here, and I felt it back here, and I felt it back here. But we got to keep building those. And I love that idea of the anchor point. I think that's such a big deal, because sometimes we get to a place and then we're like, shoot, I don't even, did I feel that? Did that happen?
Yeah.
But if we can recall, right, then we can maybe push ourselves to the next one.
Well, and that anchor point's a cool analogy too, because like we said earlier, like life is wild on the surface.
Yeah.
Right.
But down deep, down deep, none of that surface stuff is moving that anchor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a powerful thing, because you know, I think that there are intentional forces at play trying to move us from our place.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And if we're not anchored, right? If we're not anchored, bad things can happen. We could find ourselves drifting off to some destinations that we would have never picked out.
Absolutely.
So let's pick up on the story here, because I do want to talk about Mike. I want to talk about Mike too, and how you guys met, and you know. So can you kind of bring us through that point where you're progressing, you're going to school, you've got 2 kids now, right? Things are moving. Life is getting busier and more complicated, as it always does. Right.
Absolutely. It definitely was. I ended up having to take a pause from school. I wouldn't ever say that
Where are we at? Where are we at? Are we still in Detroit?
Yeah, we're still in Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So we're still in Detroit. I'm taking a pause from school and really like contemplating like transitioning, because I like you said, Tyler, about the anchor points. I like to have anchor points in success too. So I was like, well, maybe I ought to transfer to a community college so I can get an associate's degree, because that's an anchor, right? And I can say, okay, I got 1 degree, I got my associate's degree. And then that is letting me know, look, you're only halfway there. You don't have that much further to go to that bachelor's. You're already halfway there.
Yeah.
And so
well, and it's kind of like climbing a mountain, right? Where you would put in, and now if you fall, you're not falling too far because you've got a piece of paper now, right?
Exactly.
It's me on a run telling myself, you can go to the next light post, man. Just keep going. That's it right there.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I'm on pause, and I get introduced to a guy in the church, and it's so funny because the woman that introduced, she was like, I don't see this working out for you because he's a truck driver and you're going to be an attorney, and that just is not going to work. That's not a relationship that's going to mesh. And she actually happened to be right, because we were married for a year and got a divorce. And so she was right about that. She's like, I knew it wasn't going to work. And I was like, hey, did I learn something from it? Right. And that's so every sense, my instance of how I'm going to use this and move forward, I've always looked at the things that have occurred in my life and what I have learned from them. And if I can ever see that I've learned, I don't ever chalk it up as a lost cause, right?
Yeah.
Because I learned from it. And I said, that's what matters, that I learned from it. And so from this brief marriage, I learned how crucial communication is in a marriage. I was like, oh my goodness, because you take this independent single mom and then you put her in a marriage with someone who's controlling and wants to know your every whereabout, when I was free to go and do as I wanted to do, right? I'm not doing anything wrong. You know, if I get off work and I want to stop by my godmother's house and sit over there for 2-3 hours, then that's what I want to do. But then now I have someone who wants to know my every whereabout, and where are you? Why didn't you come straight home from work? And I'm like, whoa. Hello? Daddy? Like, no, you're not going to talk to me like that. And so now it becomes this place of like, this isn't working for me. What are we going to do, and how are we're going to move forward? And then that relationship propelled into an abusive. It went from like an actual a verbal to a physical, and I was like, absolutely not. Like, this is what my mom went through. We are not doing this here. And I have 2 kids that I have, like, and I have a daughter, right? And is this what I want my daughter to see? Is this what I want her to experience? No, this is not happening. And so and what really pushed me to get out of that relationship. And I've shared my story with a couple of people, and they're like, I don't know. I went to prayer, right? I'm praying now. And so I pray, and we go to the temple together. And we go to the temple, and we're rushing to get to the temple. And I make it into the session, and he doesn't. And I said, I hear you. And I said, okay. Yeah. So I literally, probably the next week, I went looking for my own place. Like the next week, I would go on my lunch break and I looked for a place that was closer to my job. And I found a place for me and my kids to move to. And I moved while he was away, because I could see the pattern of my mom. I would sit at home, and when I would hear him pull up, I would get knots in my stomach. And that was not the life that I wanted to live. Yeah. I was like, I'm not living this life. And it was for me to make the decision, okay, if you're not living it, then what life are you going to live? What are you going to do about it? And if I didn't get up and do anything about it, it wasn't just going to happen for me. And so that's what I did. I got up and did something about it. Wow. And so the townhomes that I moved in, Mike was the maintenance guy at the townhomes that I lived in. Yeah. So he was the maintenance guy. And I met him by doing a call to maintenance. I needed some help, and he came by. He was the on-call maintenance guy, and he comes to my house in a regular shirt and some shorts. And I was like, and he's like, maintenance. And I was like, no, you're not. Like, you don't have on the gear. Yeah. And I would still wear my wedding ring because I just didn't want to be bothered.
Right.
I was like, if you wear a wedding ring, nobody's gonna bother you. Like, nobody's gonna try and talk to you, except Mike. so he made the comment that because I'm a working mom, I have kids, and my nails weren't done. Like, they needed to be done. They had grown out some, and he makes the comment, if I was your man, your nails would be done all the time. Where's your husband? Like, he just started like grilling me. And I was like, first off, I don't have a husband. And he was like, oh, okay, well, my name is Mike. I'm this. And he just like starts giving me his whole profile. And I was like, okay. And then something really strange that I did, I never gave out my phone number. I would make up a random phone number and give it to a guy if he asked me. I gave Mike my house number, my cell number, and my work number. Don't ask me why, but I did. And he literally used all of them. He called me the same night. And I was like, it's 11 o'clock. I have to go to work tomorrow. I can't talk to you. And who calls somebody on the first day after 11 o'clock anyway, right? Your parents ever teach you don't call girls after 9 p.m. because the conversation goes.
Oh, you know what? You got to throw those rules out. That's like unwritten rules in baseball. Screw those rules.
That's right.
That just gets in the way.
Apparently Mike knew what he wanted, man. Come on.
So clearly he did know what he
wanted. Clearly
wanted.
you're probably breaking everything in your townhouse so the maintenance guy can keep coming by, right?
That is not true. That is not true. He did realize that I didn't have a carbon monoxide detector. And he's like, oh, you're supposed to have one. I'll bring one by. Just leave permission for me to enter at
Well played,
front,
Mike.
Right?
Well
so
played.
I did. I left permission for him to enter. And then he literally like blew my phone up. You home yet? You home yet? You home yet? And I was like, no, I'm on my way. I get home. There's a dozen yellow roses on my dining room table. And I was like, I was like, well, I'm not looking for a relationship. So we can be friends.
That's a classic maneuver, Andrea. The we can be friends.
That actually hurts. That
did
hurts.
You
not that I've heard that before.
Yeah.
But that hurts.
That one hits right close to home. I'm curious if you walked right past the roses and looked to make sure the carbon monoxide.
The carbon monoxide, exactly. You know I did. No, I did. You know I did. Like, did you get my carbon monoxide detector while you over here stalking me and putting roses on my table? So that's how I met Mike, and he just kind of stuck around. He was like, "Oh, I'm gonna wait this one out," and I'm like, "Dude, I have kids. Like, why do you want to be with someone who has kids? You have none. Why do you want to be with someone who has kids?" But I guess he knew what he wanted, like you said, Tyler.
Yeah,
he
knew what he wanted. He knew what he wanted.
So,
I love that. And now, can we let's fast forward just a little bit here, because I know that recently, or not, I guess not all that recently, but relatively recently, you passed the bar exam. Is that right?
That is right. That is right. And so we'll fast forward past a whole bunch of things. I'd have you guys here all night if we talk about. I mean, we could do like a whole book on this. So I recently passed the bar exam. The bar is the bar. So
hold on. I know we're going to pass through some stuff, but for our listeners, I just want to point out you can't pass the bar with an AA degree.
That's true.
That's true.
So
That's true.
There were some other things that happened in there, man.
Can you at least fill in a little bit? Like, I need some other pieces of paper along the way.
Right. Okay. So at the time I worked for Blue Cross and loved it because they did what they call tuition. They did tuition reimbursement, but they did tuition assistance, where if you gave them your schedule, they would prepay for your classes.
Come on now.
And so I was like, thank you, Blue Cross. So Blue Cross paid for my associate's degree, and they were on their way to paying for my bachelor's when my mom ended up moving to Utah, and we sent the kids out to spend the summer with her, and their cousins were there with my mom because she was raising my sister kids at the time. And they were like, we want to move. And so I was like, excuse me? They're like, yeah, we want to move to Utah where grandma and our cousins are. And I'm like, we live in Michigan, like Utah's on the other side of the United States. And I was like, okay, if I can find a job, because Mike's a mechanic, so Mike can go anywhere and get a job. And so so the maintenance thing was his side hustle, we would say. So I said, if I can find a job, I carry the family's health insurance, then we can move. And a job opening happened at the Blue Cross in Utah. And so guess what? The Simmons family is packing up and moving across states. And so we moved across state and ended up in Utah. And so
okay,
now
I apologize for the whole fast forwarding thing. Now that was a huge error in judgment. All right, because I'm curious. Are you and Mike married at this point? What's happening?
Yeah, so Mike and I are married. We got married in our bishop's office. So
get out of here. Okay.
Yeah, so we did the bishop office marriage, and it was just us, the bishop, and our 2 witnesses. So
love it. Okay.
So we're like, let's go. So
and can I ask real quick, just what took Mom out to Utah?
Mom worked for the church. And
okay.
So she was working the facilities. She was working with the facility maintenance department of the church, and a position came open in Utah. And so Mom left.
Change of pace, man. Change of scenery. Always a good thing every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she ended up
living in Utah. That's
different.
It was real different. It's got to be real different.
It was really different.
It's different from everywhere, but it's got to be real different from
Detroit.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. So it was real different from Detroit, traveling with 2 vehicles and it was 3 kids at the time. I was pregnant with the 4th one. Okay. And so it was pretty different. We ended up in Utah, and school was always something. I was like, I'm going back to school. And now it's a matter of, okay, but now you got a 4th child. So when are you going back to school? Okay, let's get this 4th child in school, and then I'm going back to school. So the year that my 4th child started school is the year that I enrolled in school on a fast track program. I finished my bachelor's in a year in a semester.
Ooh, awesome. Yeah.
I was taking probably 18 credits every semester. I was on the fast track. And the cool thing about it is that I had gotten all of my generals completed with my associates. So I completed the generals with the associates. So my major was English. And so I had an English major. And so I literally was just taking English classes the whole time.
Andrea, I love it. Every once in a while I marvel at seasons of my life when I look back and I think, how did I do that?
Right. That's me for sure.
What do you think when you look back on that degree in English in that season?
I was like, wow. And I think I'm like, how I did it so fast. I was like, I did it fast. I went to school when my kids went to school. So while my kids were in school, I was in school. When my kids were home, I was home. I did have a couple of classes that I had to take at night, but then Mike was home. So it wasn't a big deal because I didn't want my kids to think that I sacrificed time for them in order to pursue what I wanted. And so I was like, okay, so now I'm on this fast track. Don't let the fire dim, keep going. So boom, we're moving to San Diego so I could go to law school. And let me tell you about faith. I hadn't even applied to law school. I just knew that I wanted to go to law school in San Diego because they came to a law school fair at the University of Utah where I got my degree from. And I was like, that's where I'm going. I want to go there. Hadn't even applied. And I said, okay, Lord, here goes my faith. If you make a way, then I know that that's where I'm supposed to go. He made a way. So I followed and ended up in San Diego. And I said, okay, so I'm here. I hadn't even taken the LSAT because you do have to take the LSAT, which is a law school admission test, just like, you have the MCAT and all those. I hadn't even taken that. And law school will base your admittance on that. Yeah, I hadn't even taken it, but I claimed my law school. And I said that I'm going, and I'm going to go there.
You just manifested it. You just said, this is how this is going to go.
I manifested the heck out of that. This is how it's going to go, and I'm going to end up exactly where I want to be. And when I tell you that I ended up exactly where I wanted to be, my LSAT score, crummy. I was like, this is horrible. So I took it again. Yeah, it was the same score. I was like, this is for the birds. But I'm still going to law school, so I'm gonna apply anyway. I'm just gonna apply. We're going off of faith, because when the Lord is at the helm, guess what? It's gonna happen. If you ask him and he told you yes, it's yes today, tomorrow, next week, next year, in 10 years. It's always yes. His yes doesn't change, right? It's always the same. So I said, okay, he told me yes, and he got me here. So I know, and I have to trust and believe that he's going to get me where I want to be. And guess what? The law school that I applied to, the only one, accepted me.
I love it.
So, you know, Tyler, as I'm hearing this story, I'm thinking of a conversation that we've had a while back. You were talking to somebody that was struggling, and they were struggling like they were ready to quit. They were ready to end, right? They were maybe even thinking about ending their life, and the person had a list of shoulds. Well, I should be here. I should be here. I should be here. And you asked and you said, you know, let's take that list and let's just take the timeline away. You know, take that should thing away, and let's just look at that list from like an eternal perspective of like, hey, life is long, and let's just, right? How does that feel? And instantly the person's anxiety was just like, okay, that's manageable.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, and as I'm thinking about that and I'm listening to Andrea's story, like we do that to ourselves. Mm-hmm. We do that to our kids. We do that to it's like, oh no, you got to go here, and then you got to do this, and you better have all that done by 21. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, why? No, you don't.
That's right.
Love it. I mean, Andrea's 30, so here we go.
Yeah. Right? As long as it's done by 30, you're good to go. Right?
Hello? I'm telling you, you can have 4 kids,
boom,
2 grandkids, and still be 30, okay?
I just think that's so liberating to hear your story. And, you know, as people are listening, because people do, you know, they listen through the lens of their life. They run our words through what they're dealing with right now. And if somebody's thinking, I missed my shot. No, you haven't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, on whose calendar? On whose timeline, right?
Right. On whose timeline. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Or that multiple on-ramps that we talk about, right?
Right.
We think that's the only shot I got. Screw that. You got other chances. You got other on-ramps. We have a loving God. And like you said, his yes, if it was 10 years ago, it's still on. It's on the books. Mm-hmm. His promises are sure. He's good. Right. Yeah. It's us. Good.
And I'm taking that to the bank, because
that's the only thing you can take.
That's the only thing you can take.
Because everything else is going to come back. You know, it's going to come back. It's going to come back insufficient. But
exactly,
that one's going to work. That one's going to work. I love that he made a way.
Well, and I think
there's Andrea. She's wearing the T-shirt of her law school. She's not even in it yet. She's like, "Yep, this is what it is."
Yeah.
This is it. This is it.
And I think that it's important that we recognize, right, that you felt like there's a way prepared by God, but then you're working towards that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's
not sitting back waiting.
Put out.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Not sitting back waiting. Right.
Yeah.
My daughter and I
nothing comes to us laying in bed, right?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
my daughter and I were actually just talking about this the other day. She was like, you know, Mom, one of the things that I love about you and why your faith is so strong is because you pray and you do. You don't pray and wait.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, you pray and you do. You pray and you trust and rely that the Lord is going to help you, but you don't sit back and wait for him.
Yeah.
I think God loves when we get on our knees and we say those back my play kind of prayers.
Right. Right?
Back my play. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. Back my play.
Yeah.
He like, all right, come on, let's do this. Teammate.
Right?
Teammate, I got you on this. He's like, okay, now get out there on the court. And I want to see what you're working with.
Right?
Exactly.
God wants you on the court. Hey, touch these stones because this was my plan.
Yeah.
This is the only plan I got. Here we go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got you the rest of the way. And so
can I ask a question though? You talked about looking in your life, and as long as it was an experience that you learned from, it's not a failure, right?
It's not a failure.
What is life? Not. What are you learning from life right now?
Oh, my
you got grown
goodness.
kids. You're billing people $5,000 an hour or something right now.
That is not my hourly rate. Don't be telling people that. That is
That's
not
just
my
what she was
hourly rate.
she was going to charge us.
Yeah, right.
It's a little bit under that. No, just kidding.
Mike is overseas working. Tyler alluded to that sacrifice that he's making. The whole family's sacrificing. What in all of this craziness that is around? What is life teaching you right now?
Life is teaching me, and what I love about what I'm learning now, and I wish that I had learned it, a while ago.
Well, that's always the case,
right? Is the power of manifestation. The power, because and on how what I've done with the power of manifestation, I've looked at it in not a temporal sense, in a spiritual sense. Because if we look at it on a spiritual level, the Lord has already told us, ask and ye shall receive. He's already told us that we have the power to manifest the things that we want in our lives. And learning now that I truly do hold that power has made all the difference.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking of the lessons that we learn about the creation and how things were created spiritually first. Mm-hmm. And you look at the blueprint and it's like, okay, this is what I'm trying to build. Include him in the blueprint, include him in the planning, work with your family, work with your loved ones, work with that circle of trust, right? Maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a bishop or whatever. And you go do it and you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed. And it'll actually be better than what was on the blueprint.
Exactly, right? And just remembering that the Lord has always promised us that which is good is of me. So as long as you are manifesting and thinking of those things in your life that are good and that will continue to bring good into your life, you know that they are of him. Why do we have to feel that we need to be limited in the goodness that we have in our life when he tells us that if it's good, it's of me? So we should be wanting to bring the goodness in our lives in abundance. We should be wanting to just flood our lives with this goodness. Yet we limit ourselves, and we often feel in some cases that we don't deserve it or that we're being greedy, right, about it. However, he has told us that he will pour out so many blessings unto us that we won't have room to receive them, right? If we but keep the faith and believe and trust in him. Wow, that's simple, huh? Okay.
Yeah, right. Let's
get us a shot, right?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's experiment on that, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's amazing. Here we are on a show called The Richest Men in Town, and we're talking about abundance, right? And I love that thought though, that that if there, to me, there's this idea of alignment, and if we put ourselves in alignment with the right things, and we're doing our best to do the right things for the right reasons, I'd think back to your mom's comment when you were young that, hey, things will work out. Mm-hmm. Right? Things will work out, but then if we can add what you just said to that, things will work out. But if we're doing things the right way for the right reasons, things will work out in abundance. And I love that, and it's not, and like you said, it's not necessarily temporal, right? But there will be an abundance. And that's a powerful thought. And I think that's a liberating thought,
I can't help but think, Andrea, if you ever play the what if game as you look back on your life, right?
I do from time to time.
I mean, I look at the journey and I don't know the whole landscape, but man, if you like you said, you paused your schooling. You know how many people pushed pause and never pressed resume? Right. And there's people listening right now that have paused on some dreams that, man, if they can get anything from listening to you and your story, is like, go get that thing.
Yeah.
Right. Go get that thing that you stop. Life happened. I get it. I think there was wisdom and order in that. Right. You needed to pause. You needed to find people that were going to help you. And it sounds like God was mindful of you. He gives you an employment opportunity that happens to help you with tuition, right? You can pick things back up. And I would just invite people, like, whatever it looks like, whatever the faithful thing to do in your life looks like, do it. Right?
Yeah. And Mike, I can't help but think about, this limiting talk that we put on ourselves. I think it was with Gary a few episodes back where he talked about deleting those kind of things that we say to ourselves. And one of the things he said was, I'm too old to do, right, fill in the blank. Because why? Right? Why?
Yeah, I missed my shot. Oh, dang it. I missed my...
If I only did it back then, why?
I am in my prime, okay?
That's my birthday. That was my line.
People ask me, they always ask me, Tyler, you can attest to this. How do you look so young? I claim the age that I feel. Do you hear me? I claim the age that I feel. I feel like I'm 25. I'm going to claim it until I can't claim it anymore. And I live that way. I am on no one's own timeline. I am on no one's timeline. And so therefore I can achieve whatever it is that I want. Who says that I have a specific time to do this?
That's it. Let's everybody let that sink in, right? That there's not a timeline. There's not a prescribed, if you don't do it by this date, it has expired. It doesn't expire.
Well, and let this sink in too, right? The best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come.
Like our best days are ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. If we're looking longingly at some past, that's not the gospel.
Right.
That's not the shadow, the now on which the shadow stands. That's the most important moment in life, right? We can't look back and think, dang it, 10 years ago, I should have invested in this. I would have been in a different situation.
Although, man, that Bitcoin thing, I missed that.
Bitcoin, didn't see that coming.
Wait, talking about that? I missed Tesla while you playing just last year.
Man, come on.
I missed Tesla just last year. I'm not talking 10 years ago. I'm talking about last year when I missed Tesla.
GameStop.
I know, right? I missed that one too.
Come on, man. All right. Well, look, here's what I love this. We talk about this, and Andrea, I love and I appreciate you sharing the journey that you've shared with us, because one of the things that is great, and selfishly so, is that you've lived a rich life and you're living a rich life. And selfishly, you marched out of Utah and landed in San Diego, and our paths cross. And I'm richer for it, right? And that's the beautiful thing about this life that we live, is that Mike Freeman lives up in Northern California, and here he is on a call with Andréa Simmons. And I can tell you this, Andrea,
well, hold on.
Mike is going to be texting me and calling me for days after this about how great it has been.
But to Andrea's point, Tyler, we manifested this.
Amen.
We would talk about this, right, years ago.
Yeah.
And spiritually, it kind of lived in our heads. And here we are now, a year later, and I'm connecting with Andrea in learning things that only she can teach, right? Like she's done some things, and I'm listening, and I'm running it through the filter that is my life, and it's gonna make me a better husband and father. That's the whole point, right? That's what we're trying to accomplish here.
But Andréa, so we've been at this a couple hours. It's hard to believe it's been a couple hours, but I wanted to give you a minute, because you talked about your mom, you talked about your brothers and sister, you talked about your godmother, you talked about Mike. Is there anyone else that you'd like to take a minute and honor?
I actually want to honor my kids. I really do want to honor them, because they have been on this journey with me, and they have endured a lot with me. And it sometimes what I've come to realize is that my journey doesn't only affect me, especially when I have a family behind me, when I have children, it doesn't just affect me, it affects them too. And it also affects their outlook on life. And I want to honor the fact that they have seen the struggle, and they can still find the strength in it.
I love it.
You know, we made some jokes about investing, knowing that the strengths and weaknesses of parents are manifest in the lives of children. I would be investing in the children of Andréa Simmons all day and twice on Sunday, man.
Amen.
I can only imagine what those kids are going to do to this world, right? Having seen this up front, right? Front row Joe watching you do your thing, man, they've got to have some grit. They've got to have some perseverance, and they're going to move some things. They're going to move some things.
I know those kids, and I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Well, 2 hours of time, right? It's been a blast. And, you know, one of the things that when Mike and I started doing this a while ago now, over a year ago, you know, it was called The Richest Men in Town, not because we're a couple of men, but it was called The Richest Men in Town because of our hero George Bailey in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, right?
Okay.
At the end of that movie, George has been he's had a rough go of things, and he's up against it financially, spiritually, emotionally, and he walks into a room after realizing the blessings that he does have in his life, and his brother raises a glass to him and says, to my big brother George, the richest man in town. And Andréa, it's been evident after spending some time with you how rich your life is. But what does it mean to you, Andréa, to be considered the richest woman in town?
I'm actually honored to be considered that, because I've always had a desire to use my story in some way to help someone else. If I can enrich their lives and give them that hope that they can still make it. And so I feel honored to be able to have that opportunity to hopefully be able to do that for someone.
Well, I can tell you without a doubt that someone's going to be listening to this podcast and is going to hear your story and is going to make changes in their lives or pursue things in their lives that they maybe have decided those things, I can't pursue them anymore. You know, I think I mentioned this to you before, but Mike and I are lucky in that, A, we get to spend a couple of hours every week with great people like yourself, and B, we get to hear from people who listen to people like you, Andréa, and tell us how their lives have been changed to that experience. And so I can say without a doubt that there will be people whose lives will be impacted because of your story, and we're just grateful to you for your willingness to share.
The bummer is we get that paycheck, right?
That's right.
They They don't necessarily light up your phone. They may, right?
They might. Yeah, absolutely.
Folks, we'll get to hear your stories, but literally it'll be like, hey, Mike, I was mowing the lawn and I had your podcast on and I stopped the mower and was hit over the head with this idea of something I got to pick up or something I got to put down, right? A change I got to make, maybe a relationship I got to get out of, maybe a relationship I got to get into. Maybe, you know what? Maintenance Mike taught me some moves and I'm sweet on this girl and I'm going to go do the dozen yellow roses move. Who knows? Who knows what they get out of it, right? But the idea is that if they're listening, like you said, he'll make a way. He'll make a way. And those things that we may bury, they get unburied real quick. Our hero, George Bailey, he was up against it and he became a praying man. And he says, I'm not a praying man. But he plays the card you played. When we're up against it, God is there. And if anything, right, if we can get people to just maybe do that, maybe take some inventory and, connect with God and see what he's got in store for them. I think that would be worth the price of admission in their time with Andréa Simmons. So thank you for being real. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for showing up. This went places I had no idea we were going to go. So I loved it.
So did I. It has been a great 2 hours and my pleasure.
Well, Andréa, love you. Love your family. Make sure you tell them we said thank you for sacrificing a couple hours of your time, of their time with you. And we'll be talking again soon.
We got to track down Mike.
Yeah, we got to get Mike on. Hey, and you tell Mike I said hi. We love Mike.
I sure will. Sure will. All right.
All right, Andréa. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.